Well, praise the Lord, everybody, praise the Lord. Welcome to night number 9, celebrating my birthday and the release of Decennium Decisions. Blessing and thanking God for each and every one of you, my Father's children, who have been joining me night by night. Listen, have you been blessed every night so far? Have you been blessed every night so far? Amen, amen, and amen. Listen, while you're on, tonight is going to be a very special night. Every night is special to me, but there are some nights that are a little bit more different than others. And tonight is one of those nights because my mentor, my peer mentor, my brother, and also my trainer in certain instances, it's actually joining us tonight. Now, Prophet Atkinson, are you on and can you hear me?
Let's see.
Okay, because I can't see you, but I see your name. Oh, there you go. Ah, he's here.
Oh,
hey, everybody.
Suadate. Great evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad. Listen, everybody, tonight is going to be a very special night for me. Like I told you all when I started this, that, I wasn't real deep about how I wanted, to position certain things. I was strategic, and you all know me. I'm strategic about pretty much everything and in the way that I do it. But when my brother said yes, I was elated because he is, like I said, he is a peer mentor to me. And when I say that, I just want to qualify it by saying that a lot of you all, you're out in these streets looking for spiritual fathers and spiritual mothers. And sometimes it is your peers, those that labor among you, have what it is that you need in order to help you through certain processes. I don't know if you remember earlier during this time, I told you that I went through a season in my life where the only mentors that I had were books. Okay. And if anybody can attest to that, just get some hearts, give some love for that, because, we are, like I said the other night, we're in some very perilous times. And like I discussed last night with Apostle Natson, that everybody in their grandmother's chicken is somebody's spiritual mother and father. And so he entered my life, Prophet Atkinson, entered my life at a time where I needed to be, how can I say it? It wasn't so much that I needed, any kind of adulation, if that's a better word. But what I did need was confirmation of my purpose. And I would have very candid, long, he probably should have charged me like I charged my patients, but I had very candid, long conversations with my brother. And because he is what I would call, I don't even really have words or a title that I could put to who he is, because he's so vast. And I know that a lot of you all are saying she's doing all this introduction for him, but it's because it's real. He is a person that has such a repertoire that was so broad, that he and his lens is so different. Even though he is church, when he would say some things to me, it would literally put me on my back. And I'm gonna be honest, I've sat, and I actually went to the grad school that I went to sit under a certain professor, because I just wanted to be under his tutelage. And so I'm not easily impressed by information, but the revelation and the way that he expounds and opens up your heart and your spirit to truth is something that money cannot buy. It can be duplicated, it can be imitated, but he is the original. And so what I'm going to do right now is just get you acquainted with his bio. That's right. That's right.
Oh my God, Angel.
I put my little granny glasses on tonight. Break out the bio. And it says here, Prophet LeRon Atkinson travels the world demonstrating, preaching, and teaching life-transforming messages that bring healing and deliverance to the whole man. He is a catalyst for change and reformation. His charismatically creative, absolutely thought-provoking, absolutely atmosphere-shifting way of delivering God's word convinces, I know you hate it, convicts and compels diverse people from sundry backgrounds. How that mean? You started from the bottom and now you're trying to get here. And coaches to want to grow in their knowledge of Jesus Christ. Revelatory, refreshing, unconventional, risque indeed. Distinctive and defining are some of the descriptives used to characterize his ministry. Documented miracles, signs, and wonders follow his ministry. Bodies visibly afflicted with multiple sclerosis have straightened up while in service. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Post-stroke patients have come to meetings and received full activity of their bodies and mouths and straightened up right in service. The power of God is evident through Prophet Atkinson's ministry. His fervent commitment to the work of Christ is balanced by his casual disposition and ability to use humor to medicate the ailing. His candor is amazing, as you will see tonight. God has favored him to speak and host on several well-respected Christian networks and trending mainstream media outlets. These opportunities have strengthened the global ministry of Prophet Atkinson and allowed his ministry to be heard and experienced by hundreds of thousands across the United States and abroad. In addition to his personal ministry, Prophet Atkinson maintains quite a healthy social media following that he speaks into, that has its own life force and community. But last but never least, Prophet Atkinson is very happily, married husband to his very happily married wife, Lady Gina, and they have one brilliant young daughter, Miss Brooke. She's totally a daddy's girl, and they reside in sunny West Palm, Florida. Listen, Holcombville, send those hearts up, send those claps up. If you have not shared this, I want you to share it tonight. Welcome, my brother. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Dr. Angel, I cannot believe you just read my bio in its full entirety.
In the fullness, because, and listen, because you're one of the ones that I can read, I know it ain't a lie. So, so listen, I believe in honoring people and giving them their flowers.
Yes, you do.
One thing I am not
yes, you do.
to say is that you have been very pivotal in my ministry and in putting me in the right direction and in the right frame of mind and helping me to be comfortable with the fact that I'm just not a preacher. And tonight,
yes.
I charged you with a very hard topic, which is making decisions that really just go against the grain and come against that status quo that we believe, everybody has to follow this formula in order to be successful in ministry. And you at every turn of your ministry have seemed to gone against the grain and come out successful. I mean, to me, in this day and time where, you got to sleep with somebody or you got to do something crazy to get through certain doors, you have managed to navigate so carefully through these platforms that people want to kind of deal with, not just in ministry, but also in the secular world. One thing that I love about you is that you have been able to seamlessly maneuver between ministry endeavors as well as all of your secular endeavors that are in their genesis, but are, starting off with a very strong start. So, listen, you got my exordium, which is that first little intro chapter. I always ask everybody on the first question before we get into the interview is, what are your thoughts and what is your take so far on what you've read so far?
Well, first, Dr. Angel, my friend, my sister, I am so glad to be here. This is the first Zoom meeting that I've actually accepted being on, and people have asked me to be on Zooms, and I have not yet responded to, but I am going to do them. So I knew I had to figure out how to be on here because I was not going to let you down on tonight. I'm so excited about what's happening for you, what's happening in you, what's happening through you for your birthday month. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be a part of this moment in your life that you really deserve. From the time I met you, I believe you're a beautiful soul. And I saw your optimism through all of the perceived pessimism. And that will lead me into where I'll go in talking about your book and what I have read so far. I think the truest voices and some of the most understated and underrated voices are going to be perceived as pessimists
Mm.
because much of what is optimistic about you is buried in language and in tone and misunderstood through passion.
Mm.
And in reading your book, I was able to see all of that. And I was also able to pull the parts that I love, the intelligence, and to see you come alive in words was beautiful. When I look at people, all of us, eventually we're gonna become words. Jesus is the word. We're gonna become words, positive words, negative words, somewhere in between words. We're ultimately gonna become that. So to be able to positively speak affirmatively about who you are, where you are, the processes that you have come through, just in the small part that I've read, it left me impressed spiritually, naturally, intellectually, sapiosexually, all of those actuallys, it gave that. And so I'm very proud. I'm not in the sense of, that sense of proud of you, but I'm proud of this moment and to share in everything that you're doing for you. And I'm glad you did it this long. You'll hate me for saying this, but I promote all of that. So I'm glad you did it this many days. For all of the days you were underappreciated, I'm glad your face is bigger than any face that's on that program. Congratulations. I support that. I approve it. I applaud it. Every balloon is to our Dr. Angel Holcomb.
Thank you.
Every blue and every green is to you.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, and you don't know this, but I'm going to also be honest with the audience, and by saying that you don't know this, but you were very instrumental in me taking this very quantum leap, because okay, one thing that when you become a preacher, and I want you to, everybody just get comfortable tonight, because when me and my brother talk, we carry on, okay?
And I'm ready for all of it.
Yes, and I'm not going to change any of it. I'm letting you know right now, I haven't had to give a disclaimer any other night, but I'm going to give one tonight. If you are a Pharisee or a Sadducee, because you are Sadducee, then you probably don't want to be on here with us tonight, because we are about to really kick in some doors and say some things that are probably going to be considered disruptive. But the reason, so what I was saying was that you were very paramount in me doing this, because I was always taught that when you get called to preach, that you needed a microphone in your hand, and you needed a hand towel, and you needed a handmaiden or an armor bearer, and that you were supposed to go out there and squall to the top of your lungs, destroying your speaking voice, and walking benches. Now, see, you do that well, okay? I met him walking benches. I went to a church in the Bronx, and brother was walking benches. You hear me? That church was packed from front to back, okay? Folks was mad they could not get in there. And I was always under that impression that was who it was that I was supposed to be. And I remember one day you just had a real conversation with me, and you were like, you know what, Holcomb, that's just not you. You know what I'm saying? You're intellectual. You have to learn how to leverage your voice in a way that works for you, that still honors God and the church and the tradition of what a preacher is. But you have to get comfortable with the teacher in you. And I'm going to be honest, I always thought that I was a lot of people used to always say, you're a much better preacher than you are a teacher. And I never felt that. I never, I could do it because performance art is what they teach you. But it was something that I was never comfortable with. And so when you said that to me, you were like, your posts are the things that attract people. Your words, that calm demeanor that you have when you're sitting and you're speaking, that's how you're going to win. And I remember at first feeling some type of way, because in my mind, I was like, that's what we supposed to do. What you trying to say? And then you must have picked it up, because you said, Holcomb, they're never going to call you to the platforms like you see, the Bynums and the different ones on, not because you can't do it, but because that's not what you're supposed to be doing. And God, and you said something so profound. You said, you've already wasted enough time trying to fit in the boxes of other people. It's time for you to just do what it is that you do. The reason that, you're not finding comfort is because you're going to be the first one to do it the way that you're going to do it. And that immediately, I'm talking about nobody had to lay hands on me. Nobody had to put no sweat on me. Nobody had to blow in my face. He freed me instantly when my eyes, I'm watering them now, because, you know, one thing that I've been saying about people is that we're making decisions based on what it is that we believe and what we think other people think that we should do and believe. And so I'm just going to read one little section right here, where it says here, the fire of pain and flames of hurt had created an inferno and cremated my heart right inside my body. I was doing good, but wasn't any good, and it was showing. Slowly, my anger began to creep from my heart and come straight out of my mouth. And anybody in my path got mowed down with no remorse. It was like Daenerys and Dracarys from Game of Thrones. Fire everywhere. Fire everywhere I went if someone upset me. I was out of order, out of control, and I could no longer handle even having surface level interaction with people without somehow leaving negativity as my calling card. That was because I was doing things and I wasn't being successful at what it was that I was doing, because I thought that I was supposed to be doing it. I wasn't having success. And so frustration and pain were now coming out as anger. The first question I want to ask you tonight is, just give us a little history about how LeRon Atkinson went from being LeRon Atkinson to Prophet Atkinson while still maintaining who it is that he was.
Well,
a mouthful, right?
It's a loaded question, and you may have to revisit it because it's going to be layered.
Okay.
Naturally, I'm a second-born younger brother to a very brilliant brother. We're very different, highly intelligent, and being a second brother, when you already had a first, you have to make your own space. So naturally, you just do what you do. Mm-hmm. You're the youngest, you're the baby, etc. Space. And everyone's trying to tell you who you have to be, how you got to be, what you got to be. So you got to pick what you're going to do. I'm going to listen to you and be here. I'm going to be myself and make everyone upset. So naturally, I was already geared to be my own self. I'm not going to be like you. I'm not going to be like that. That's natural for me. And I'm used to being around strong, dominant personalities. Strong, dominant personalities that didn't require me to be broken or sad, low in order for me to be in certain spaces. So I didn't become used to that or see a pattern of that until I came in certain charismatic circles and cultures where that has to be the norm. Mm-hmm. So there's a natural refusal of me to allow myself to be broken in certain ways in order for me to be accepted. I don't associate those thoughts or those ideals with who I need to be as a person. And so in times when I've encountered that, immediately it says to me that there's an issue within something that's above me or over me that may have a challenge with me, but I'm not going to allow that to become my issue. And regardless of who that is, and that's been, whether that be parent, grandparent, whomever, that's always been my tone. It's always been my mentality. It's always been my thought process. And some process that is arrogance or disrespect, but I process that as these are patterns and pathologies in my life that work for me. And when I find what works for me, what works for me works for me. Every time I step out of that pattern from childhood through adulthood, it doesn't work for me. So regardless of what doesn't work for other people around me, because I'm going to be with me longer than I'm going to be with them, I'm going to consistently choose me over that space. And that carries with me in every space that I've been in, whether professionally, spiritually, whether I'm in church space, whether I'm in other professional space and around whomever I'm around, there is a sense of self and a sense of soul that you have that you can't let anyone rob from you in any other space. And anybody that's trying to rob that from me, you need to know that I'm packing, and it's not going to be an easy attack. Mm-hmm. And I may not sweat when I do it. I may do it laughingly, but I'm also a younger brother and I'm antagonistic. I'm going to find a way to defend myself in a way that's comfortable for me, in a way that I enjoy doing, to make sure that my turf and my territory is defended and respected by any means necessary.
Okay. So, so you're saying that even from a child, you were pretty much always aware of your placement. I noticed that you started off by saying, I'm the younger brother. So there's an obvious indicator of your socialization and you understanding, I guess, the pecking order, as we like to call it, in your life. At what point did you realize, first of all, at what point did you realize that you had a call of God on your life? And who helped you recognize it?
Who helped me recognize a call? I didn't really know that I had a call of God. When I got when I got saved and I found the Lord found me, etc. I'd gotten in some trouble and I ended up on doing community service. And so I had to do my community service at a church. So in doing my community service hours, that's when I actually get saved, I get filled and all that stuff. So I wasn't necessarily as churchy or churched out, etc. So that's always been a plus. My mindset or my mentality wasn't need baby. I visited, I went here and there, etc. But having my own experience came later. Having my own experience gave me it gave me a whole nother, etc., because my preferences of people have always been vast. It's always been different. So I've always had anything from politicians to prostitutes to preachers. My quote unquote Rolodex on any given day is so massive that I can't be judgmental or limited. I'm best friends that got a gynecologist and another is a therapist. And so my palette can be quite loaded day to day, experience to experience through the years. And I've seen strong people be broken by weak circumstances that should never have, you would have never imagined that happening to, because they've lost a sense of their essence of their soul. So it's important for me that when I see a person who has soul, passion, a sense of them, there's something in me that's a liberator. So if I see you and I see bondage, I'm going to do one or two things. I'm either going to invest time and help set that part free by any means necessary. And I don't have to be in your life long. I'm a liberator. And if you don't want to be liberated, and when I say liberated, I mean, you will find yourself liberated in ways that you didn't even know you need liberation until you found out that you were actually trapped in that way. And when scripture says that he who the Son sets free, or he who the Son liberates from bondages or prisons, it is so much deeper than sometimes you can even imagine. Truth unlocks, it reveals. It reveals lies that you didn't even know you were locked into, because history has buried truths and it's made things so subjective. What truth does is it liberates your mind and it sets you free from cultural bondages, all of those different spaces. When I look at, as you asked about being in ministry, there are so many cages that are locked around gifts, identities.
Here we go.
You can listen to you 24/7 and say, oh my God, this one can preach and that one can't preach. And the truth of the matter is some folks just can't preach.
That's it.
You can't preach. And you weren't called to preach. And maybe that's not your strength, and maybe that's not your gift. But you're better at an altar call than you are preaching. But the preaching's so bad, you just want to hurry up and get to the altar call. And the altar call was so good, you forgot about how bad the preaching was. And so you will change your whole thought or idea based upon culture, place to place upon what a thought is. And you end up with derelict gifts looking for placement and housing. Woo. And to make it worse, you have groups of dysfunctional leaders that are buying into this premise that you have to be this or be that or do this or wear that in order to be accepted or in order to be. And if you do that, eventually all the women preachers start sounding alike and being crazy and start dating the same people and mating the same people, and all of these premises of things you have to care about that you really don't care about, things that you have to defend that you really are not involved with defending, and you lose sight of your soul. It robs your soul. When I read your book and I heard the chapter that you mentioned, and you were talking about your processes of how you went through those emotions and those feelings, those are some of the most honest and true sentiments that you need to go through, because you literally physically should suffer deaths. I think being called to Christianity is a call to constantly just die.
Mm-hmm.
To just die, just go through natural processes where you've experienced it, you've gone through the youth of it, you've gotten old, and you no longer care. One of the greatest gifts that God has ever given me is the gift to not be impressed by anybody.
Woo.
Height, depth, angel, demon,
Mm-hmm.
none of those things. Money, none of those things. And you have to, it takes a lot.
You know what? One thing I don't know if you ever remember hearing, you remember saying this to me, but when we were talking about process one time, you said, Angel, you have to get to the point where you are dying daily, but you're still alive. You said you're dying daily, but people are trying to kill you, meaning that you're in your process. And so you're trying to allow the Spirit of God to do what it is that he is doing in you by way of killing the flesh. But you're in two different war zones. You're in the war zone that you want to be in because you want to die. But then you have this whole other warfare going on where people are trying to kill, not necessarily you physically, but they are trying to kill what it is that they see in you. It's almost like that Saul syndrome. How do we, as because right now, we have a lot of issues going on in the kingdom from the father, son, mother, daughter perspective, where there is a warfare that is ensuing, and it's almost, listen, and blood is literally being shed. For example, how do we still soothe Saul while dodging the javelins of Saul, and still stay within our process and keep our heart and our spirit right? Because unlike you, I did not have the privilege of growing in ministry, from the service aspect. I was kind of drafted in and just kind of thrust into it. So I really never understood the whole sonship thing until it became a toxic thing, until toxicity was the thing that was guiding the relationship. How can we tell people tonight to navigate through that particular course? Because it's been my observation that is where most people die in their process.
I want those on social media to hashtag father, son, daughter, mother. Just hashtag that. If y'all online, let's get the hashtags rolling.
Okay.
Because this is going to be a huge mark that we want to timestamp that people are probably going to watch the replay on. And many are probably not going to be bold enough to just watch live, and some will have their opinions, because without an experience, this may sound like bitterness, but here's what I want to say, because I'm going to have a lot of strong statements to say about this whole space, and I have no issue with any questions you want to ask, as raw as you would like to ask them. You feel free to do so. Okay. But one of the things that has safeguarded and helped me with that space was actually having a healthy, strong, and loving spiritual father. And this was who taught me how to drive when I did have that space. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't anything demanded. It wasn't requested. It wasn't required. It wasn't anything that was major. So coming through these generations and spaces, I came to a space where I remember where a pastor was just your pastor, was just reverend. Mm-hmm. And the first lady was just sister. So having a diversity of culture and thought, it's only in certain spaces, in which certain spaces are considered myopically to be such a large world and such a large space with one conversation, that it must be that you must have a father in this space, a spiritual father. Some of these spiritual fathers aren't even spiritual, and the spiritual mothers aren't even spiritual. You can't be a spiritual mother, a spiritual father, and there's nothing about you that is spiritual. That's going to be that's the prerequisite for that space. Having that, my first spiritual father, if I called and needed him right now today, he just had a birthday, there's nothing that he would not do. If I was in trouble, my spiritual father, I would have van and boatloads of people, and I don't talk to him maybe several times a year, but there's not anything that it's not a me doing for you type situation. It is parental. But I think for a lot of paradigms that you don't come from a healthy household and you're not used to a healthy parental system where two loving parents may take care of you or provide, you don't have a world for that system. And so if you don't have a world for that system and someone says, this is what fathers do or fathers don't, or mothers do or mothers don't, and you're desperate or needy for that space, you're going to be sucked in. Some of these spiritual fathers are not even paternal or fatherly. You don't like your own kids and your own kids don't like you. So I can't even be underneath you because you're not paternal. Some are better fathers to girls, and some are better fathers to boys. Some only father boys, some only father girls. Some mothers only father girls, and some mothers father the girls because in mothering the girls, they mothering the girls by putting their nipples in their mouth and giving them milk. Hey, that ain't your mama, and that ain't your spiritual zaddy. There are other dynamics and so many dynamics in so many worlds that are going on. And so to have a positive experience and to see others subject themselves and become baptized into this notion because of a longing or a need for a father, and some fathers/mothers for a need of a child. Some of the sons and daughters are manipulative and will manipulate people that are needing to have those relationships and vice versa. But I believe the whole paradigm is sick in and of itself. Where are your families?
I just want to jump in right here, because one of the things that we have to understand in socialization is that if we as the church are going to use the model of the nuclear family to be the thing that we use to model and structure the way that our spiritual relationships are supposed to be, even in your nuclear family, there is a level of boundary, and there is also a level of creativity of things that are new. One of the things that I observe is that, the generation that precedes us are people who have found a way to manipulate tradition and to hide behind relationship in order to control people's destiny. And so for me, I am watching a generation of extremely powerful people who have now gone past their prime in life and are now bitter and angry because they never got the opportunities they were supposed to have because the father or the mother did not want to move out of the place that they were in and they were occupying. One of the things that I would like for you to expound on, if you don't mind, is maybe to just take us into the heart or the mind of the father or the mother that has done that, and what needs to change in the children in order for them to be successful. Because anybody that understands abuse understands that 9 times out of 10, the parents never change. It's the children that have to find a way to adjust in the situation and still be able to survive and make themselves healthy people once they get from out of the situation.
Making decisions that benefit you should not break a parental relationship. It's number one. And see, knowing love, and this is back to my other point, having a pure example of love will help shape and define your other examples. So the moment I hear something that is an abusive form of love that is non-parental, see, I got children that I love. So having a child that you love, there's an encouragement. See, there's oftentimes so many limits that are placed around certain leaders. You can't do this because you're a leader. You can't do that because you're a leader. And in limiting you, they're also limiting God. The thought is you cannot be this or you cannot be that. The idea is that when God created me, that he only created one me to think this way or to be this way, and that's not true. This means that my mentality, who I am, what I do, what I embrace, what I say, I'm really not the first one. I may be the first that you've experienced or the first that has expressed externally, but I really am not the first one. The moment that I stop believing or start believing that there's something wrong with me or that I am even rebellious or that I'm wrong, this is me subjecting myself to believe that the authorities that have claimed that they are authorities really are authorities over me. So there's a huge amount of lies that I have to accept in order to believe, first and foremost, that there's something wrong with who I am and what I do and how I do what it is that I do, or the way that it is that I do, that I uniquely do, because this is who I am. Most people wrestle over their who. And the wrestling over your who is between what God has said about you and what maybe your community or your culture is saying that you have to be. With Jeremiah, he tells him, before I even formed you, I settled the score and I told you already who you were. Before I even formed you in your mother's, before I even stuck you in your mama, I ordained you. So you don't have to run around worried about who's going to lay hands on you, who's going to cover you, who's going to be your daddy, who's going to be your mama. My hands have already sealed you. I've already predestined. I've already set this up. You're a prophet. Now you're going to come down to earth, fall into some little psychotic culture that tells you you're an ambassador and you're this, you're all these different people. And this is varying in title. And so you have all of these spastic people trying to conform to these random titles that are popular for a moment. Then it passes, oh, now I'm a this, now I'm a that, now I'm a this. And what happens is when you die to all of that, when I read your book about you writing about those spaces, when you die to all of that, you end up dying and becoming who God has already predestined you to be from the beginning. A lot of the things that people are calling their destiny right now is nothing to do with your destiny. You think who you marry and that has nothing to do with your destiny. That's not destiny. Your destiny is your predestiny, and it is to be who God said you were supposed to be before you connected up with this crazy culture of people that told you that you were not this, you were not that. And you have people that are brilliant subjecting themselves, that are highly gifted, subjecting themselves to be in cultures that are so much lower than who they are in the first place.
Wow. So, okay, so I'm just going to ask a blatant question. How necessary are spiritual parents? Let's just be candid. I mean, I have spiritual children. They're on here right now. Some of them have been with me longer than a decade. So my question becomes, when we are at a point where we are now trying to walk into our destiny and we're trying to be these trailblazers and we're doing what it is that we honestly think, feel, and believe that God has called us to do, how necessary is a spiritual mother or father in the process?
Y'all write that question down there. How necessary?
How necessary?
This is what I want to say. A spiritual father, my spiritual father was a tremendous blessing to me. And as a matter of fact, was and is. And the wisdom that I've received was better than any. The way these relationships have so many parties doing up and nothing is being done down. There's no investment. There's nothing. Those relationships of spiritual parents, they teach you more than just spiritually. They help you in decision making and in life making, and they're not there to try to lead you or guide you or to run or to rule your life. This is a relationship that's beneficial. You're not being talked to like your dog, like you're not going through any of that. Mm-hmm. My spiritual father and I mean, we have a relationship, and I think many are hindered that have never had relationships. And by relationships, I mean really relationships, not church relationships or fellowships where you think that is a relationship, but human relationships where you actually go through various transitions with each other. I know what this is like you need your moment, you need your time. You're not a phone person. I get those different things. Those really help to develop whether you have a relationship or you just have a title. Mm-hmm. I've never been a person that is interested in title only in any way, shape, or form, whether that be, someone's calling themselves a bishop or pope. I call you that because you call you that, not because I believe that you are that. I call you that because that is what you have called yourself. But there's a difference in based upon me saying or stating what it is based upon my belief or based upon my experience, based upon what it is that you've shown or that you've distributed or displayed with, before me. And my spiritual father and certain parties that I've seen that had spiritual fathers, the bar is so high that I don't have to talk negatively about what another spiritual father is not. But the bar is so high that when I see it low, I know it's not for me. And I can know by certain persons' temperaments and personalities that it's not for you.
So do you think that this dynamic is growing the kingdom? Do you think that it has stagnated the kingdom? Or do you think that it has caused a measure of decline in the kingdom, in the body of Christ?
A major decline.
Spiritual parenting is a trend. And I want to, let me qualify what I'm saying, because I hear everybody and I'm looking in the comment section. So there's a lot going on in the comment section.
Oh, I'm going to look down there in a minute.
Okay. Yeah. And so I want to clarify, I am not in any way saying or knocking that this is not something that is necessary. What I am doing is I am identifying the fact that everyone's process, to purpose is extremely different. When I was coming up, in ministry, it was something that I never heard, because I grew up in AME. I grew up in where finance, education, and scholarship, though, and family, excuse me, were those things that were our pillars. So all of that spiritual mother, spiritual father stuff was not something that we heard. We had pastor, and pastor had his wife, who we referred to as first lady, and then we had the elders in the church. Now you have people that are going against their pastor because their spiritual mother or father gave them a measure of instruction. And one of the things that God is not is a God of disorder. There's no way in the world, unless there is something that is completely godless going on. And I want you to hear this. Unless there is something totally and completely godless going on, and you are in a situation where you are caught, where you are halting between two opinions, I am never going to tell one of my spiritual children something that is going to contradict and cause them to go into direct conflict with the person that God has set as a shepherd in their life. Okay. And so now the reason that I'm asking you this question, has it made things better or worse, or is it just what it's always been? Because you don't see this dynamic in the white church unless the white church leans more to a cultic way. It's a proven fact. I've done the research. And so in the black church, this is the norm. Okay, that saying you have a spiritual mother or father is the norm. Saying you have a covering is the norm. And I am confused about all these coverings who are uncovered. All of these different people who want to speak into your life and essentially control you, but they do not have any measure, not even intellectually or forget that part, because everybody don't listen. I'm learning people in church, they don't go to school. I don't know what they got against but the reality is it's something that is causing a lot of damage. What say you?
I have seen it. So I've seen it both ways. Today's church space, if you will, for many people, the systems of checks and balances is just truthfully not there. Any person that does not ask questions or just take someone's word that tells you I'm a spiritual mother because I have the right hairdo, or I got the right kind of rhinestones, the shimmers, etc., the right cloth, or a prayer shawl ministry, not a prayer ministry, but they're just into prayer shawls.
Okay, prayer shawl ministry.
Who speak in tongues, and all of a sudden someone has given you this image or this idea that they are highly spiritual. Mm-hmm. And you know, for me, in our conversations, people who speak to me, the way that I speak to people, you're not going to hear about the hikatatabahachatata. Mm-hmm. But the plans and the life plans you get, it will set your life. It will liberate you. It will free you. And there will not be a miss. From relationships to whatever, it spaces. When you look at many of these parties that are claiming to be spiritual mothers or spiritual fathers in this space, it is a trend. It is a trend, and parties feel like if I don't have a covering in this space, I'm out here. You don't know where these people came from. They just say there's someone on a flyer. And the next thing you know, you have all of these children. And many of it is emotion-based. I think many of these, you're going to look in several years, and this isn't even prophetic. This is just life. You'll see them in another 5 years, age-wise, another several years. Once you come through that space and you've been burned in that space and you done been mommied and daddied out, you just want to come into a space, into an environment, and just be a regular, just a servant. I just want to hear. I want to listen. I'm not your daughter. We're the same age. I'm not your son. We're the same age. You don't have to son me, daughter me. I don't even need all of these hugs. I don't have the needs that these other parties need. And there's a huge discrimination. I'll use that word too, to persons who are not bothered in that way, or whose self-esteem is not tore up in the way that I need your motherhood.
And see, we get labeled. I often tell people, you're not the black sheep, you're just colorful.
Yeah. And so, you can really be isolated if you don't need that. I don't need to call and tell you everything that's going on in my day or in my moment. And even as leaders, sometimes there are those who are fathers and mothers out of pressure. If you don't tell them they're your sons and they're your daughters, there are people that will boycott you because you won't abuse them or give them the level of abuse that they're used to receiving. So since I won't son you or daughter you.
Those of us, I got to put a pin right here. Did you hear what the man of God just said? Those of us who are in leadership, stop allowing people to strong arm you into being their parent. Okay. I had to tell somebody one time, I had to tell somebody, listen, I'm not the one. I said, you better go find your parents, because I'm not the one. Listen, I am not that one that you see, okay? And so, I feel like we definitely can identify our children. I just want to switch gears right here, because I don't want to get locked in there. We got to have actually a series on that. We're going to call it the Parent Trap. We're going to have a series called that. That way we can. I would enjoy that. I want people to get the breadth of who it is that you are. So, okay, fine. We get through that particular part of our process. Now we're arriving at the point of performance. We've already gotten through preparation. Let's say preparation went well for whatever reason. Now it's time for performance. What happens and what do you see in the body of Christ right now, as far as what preachers are passing off as preaching? Like I have a thing right now where I've been watching, we're home, and so everybody is preaching on Facebook, and it just looks like the preaching Olympics every Sunday. But when you tune in, half of them are either preaching somebody else's sermon that was preached the week before, or they just can't preach at all, so they fussing at everybody, or they just or they just on there doing them. When you're in a position now where you have gotten through your preparation and now you're transitioning into performance, how do you find your way? What are some keys that people can use when trying to identify where it is that they fit? Because for many years I had somebody speaking into my life, but I did not find where it was that I was supposed to be until I met you. What can people do to begin to identify? What are some things that they can use to kind of gauge that?
I tell you what, let's make this more realistic and more raw, so that we don't just seem like what was it that gave you that impact? Because let me say this. When I spoke to you, I think in our first conversation a few years ago, I spoke to you and I listened to you, and I saw, I think, a post of something that you wrote. When I spoke and I listened to you, I heard so much more. So I said to myself, I want to know who that chick is right there. Because there's a space that you give to public, and there's another space, and sometimes a space that you give to the public, and not just with you, just in general. Being able to marry those worlds is really beautiful. You can figure out how to do it. Mm-hmm. The way that you write and the way that you spoke and the way that I heard you is extremely strong and bold. And that means whoever's going to hate you for doing what you do the way you're going to do it, they're going to hate you anyway. They're going to be over there. Mm-hmm. You let them stay there. But there's a whole nother space that is going to love you for the exact same reasons that other people hate you. But if you're silent, they won't love you, nor will they hate you.
Wow.
So I'd rather do what I need to do, because if I do it and I'm successful at it, doing it, and I'm going to be successful, because success for me is being able to release what it is that is in me and that is on me for that moment in that space, because nothing that you ever said has been without weight. What irritates and frustrates is that it's weighty. It makes people pay attention in darkness. So tell you what, let's go ahead on and put some light on that darkness, allow people to see it, and allow it to do what it inevitably is going to do, because that is going to be where and how you shine most in all of those spaces. The other thing I said in talking, I said, we get this brain part. But one thing about people, unfortunately, that are in spaces that are dominated with folks that think with the right side of their brains and that are sensory and emotional and just fly by night and can't label it, a lot of times it can be chalked up as, this is God because this is spooky.
Well, the church, I'll be honest with you. The church is an uncomfortable place for intellectuals.
And that's exactly what I mean. And when I talked to you, I heard that. And in understanding that, you had all of that. You were just as bright as you were hood. When I heard you talk, it was a word, I said, ding, 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 ding. I mean, I was getting I was getting Harvard, I was getting scholarly, but I was getting this girl know how to fry some bologna and slice it right down here on the middle till the bubble pops up, put some noodles on it, and use that grease in the bologna to go ahead on and stir and whip that thing up. And all of that became so beautiful, and it becomes it becomes such another force. If you're not careful, intellectuals will be buried behind parties that are not intellectual, but they know how to take intellectual parties and masquerade as if they are the brains behind the operation. And then people that are brains and that are that talented and that are that sharp and that are that charismatic. I'm like, Angel, you got on red lipstick. You popping. You got this pose. I see sassy. Bring it out. Don't hide her. Let her breathe. Mm-hmm. And to know me is to know that I'm a liberator.
Right.
That is the part of you that needs to breathe.
So
that is the part of you that needs to
is that the first thing? Is that the first thing people need to do? They need to be liberated. And that's
be liberated.
In performance. Okay, so we're writing tonight. Okay, so one of the first things that we need to do in the performance stage of our process is we need to be liberated. We first need to be identified by someone who has clarity about our purpose, and the second thing we need to do is to be liberated enough to have the courage to be able to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, you pull the points. I'll tell you what I saw. Uh-huh. So I heard that in you, and that was the part that needed to be set free, is knowing that you are all right. The parts that others might see as pessimistic, persons that are really prophetic and that are futuristic people, that are progressive, speak more concisely. If you're not clear on that, it may seem as if you are short or that you're arrogant and all that other stuff. I love it. The reason that people are quiet is because they don't feel like they have a sense of community.
Wow. Could you say that part again?
World. You don't feel like you have a sense of community, a world. So you may feel strange by yourself or weird by yourself or off by yourself. And no, it's not that you're off. Many times it's that when you're progressive, you're futuristic, you're prophetic, you're called to stand in the world and be in the world years and months before the others get there. So you have to stand by yourself, look around, and others don't receive that invitation. So those that are not progressive.
Mm-hmm. But what do we do when we don't have a blueprint? Like, what
you don't have a blueprint. You have to be comfortable standing on your own, and you have to take what comes with that. You have to accept what comes with that. You have to be comfortable with what comes with that, and that usually associates with after a death. One of the most beautiful things that can happen to a person that is truly called is to get thrown in a scandal. Talk to you about that.
Whoa.
I choose to believe God so much that I don't believe anything. I don't believe half the other things. That I don't believe it until I feel in my spirit that I should believe it. That's how spiritual I am, even when I don't want to be. So I don't believe it to believe it. I look at it as entertainment unless it's in my spirit to believe it. Because when I go that way, I don't miss.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Some of my relationships with people, I was like, listen, I can compartmentalize. I can like this about you, not like that about you. I like you for entertainment, not for belief. There's some I like for belief, not for entertainment. I enjoy for this, not for that. And those spaces help bring a vast culture and understanding to people socially and worlds. And it lets you in anywhere. Not in church. I'm not interested in necessarily in those spaces. I am underwhelmed with so much of that. I mean, kings and kingdoms and cultures and countries that are under different terms. So those are helpful maneuvers.
So then what happens when, you so desperately want to be a part of the community and you think that you're doing all the right things, but there's never a real acceptance. There's never a real embrace. There's never, because one thing that
I'm going to tell you what happens straight up. Let me tell you what happens. You're going to be raped, taken advantage of. Your monies are going to be drained. Because the moment a person recognizes that you're willing to do anything and everything to be accepted by them, that person is going to take advantage of you if they're not called and assigned to be the person in your life that they're called.
But we're in the company of, those that are sanctified. Why do we have to worry about that? I mean,
those are those people that you can be suspicious of.
I feel like a lot of times we're being hazed, okay? And anybody that's joined a frat or a sorority will tell you hazing is not fun. But a lot of times, you know, the preacher circle makes you feel like you're being hazed, and it's a never ending haze. It just goes from one one level of hellishness to another, and it's never ending. How? Because I'll say this: you are often typecast because, you know, Atkinson, he's the villain. Atkinson, he's the antagonist. Atkinson, he is the one, that is divisive. When you hear that name or you see that name on a flyer, and I hate to say this, but you attract people who love God but will swing on you. I mean, like, listen, when you see that and you see your crowd, okay, like your people are not really on tonight, but if your people were on Holcombville, I need to tell you, y'all are not ready for what goes on in Atkinson's world when he goes live, because the comment section can have it could be anything.
Hey people, y'all get my people getting shout out.
To niggas ain't ready to the other 4-letter words. So, you know, that diversity is there and you're able to spar on so many levels. But, you know, there is a generation of us that just feel like, you know what, we really want to belong. We want community, but we get tired of always having, to let parts of who we are not necessarily die, but lay dormant so long that we are no longer even comfortable with that. Can I just share something real quick? I remember, when I was coming, along in ministry, and at that time I was still in school, so I was not Dr. Angel yet, and so I remember. Just feeling like, you know what, this is going to be something that is going to be helpful and beneficial for me in my life. And that I was so happy and I was so excited because I'm like, oh my God, everything I am learning here, as a clinical and behavior modification specialist, sociologist, I was like, I can take so many of these tools and translate them so effectively in what it is that I do in ministry. Mm-hmm. The moment that I started to introduce principle, and the moment that I started to begin to shift gears, from all of the things that I now know are just heretical and spooky, because I took the time to not just study from an intellectual perspective, but then I took the time to break things down. I'm going to tell you what happened. I was introduced to a panel, and on the panel, it was Reverend Dr. this one, Reverend Dr. that one, Reverend Dr. that one, and it was just Dr. OJ. And I did not have that reverend, even though I was an elder minister. I was not, my education was not a D-Min, okay? So bear with me, you all. And so I remember on the panel, somebody said something, and I said, well, that's often taught incorrectly. And the person turned to me and said, you need to just stick to what you're here for. We got the Bible stuff.
And what did you say?
Well, you know me. So, it went left real quick. And I had to let them know that just because I didn't have the REV doesn't mean that the DR is not valid. And I also let them know that they DR period came from a Bible school that's in the basement of somebody's church that done burnt down and ain't even accredited. So I went there, but let me tell you the truth. When I went in the back, I cried. I was broken because in my mind, you just embarrassed me in front of the community that I so desperately want to be a part of. I want to introduce my world to the church because I see how I can be helpful. But what do we do? What do the people who are not traditional? And not everybody is intellectual. I want to be clear about this tonight. A lot of people, the first thing people always use when they describe me is, oh, she's so intelligent. And I respect that and I honor that. But there's so many more layers to what it is that I do and who it is that I am. And I address them in the book. But what do you tell the people who just, the Pharisees and the Sadducees ain't having it? What is our way?
What I need to say is, one of the things that I often tell people is to stop over believing in the power of communities that really aren't as big as they make you believe that they are. Okay. I'll give you an example recently. I had to take off. I was preaching and traveling, things like that. And I have seen the world traveling and ministering and things of that sort. And I guess I'm old at it now, because now, you know, my I'm very different.
Mm-hmm.
And my expectations and my thoughts are different. I don't need to, but as you grow and as you move, what makes me say no is oftentimes just knowing what you're called for and what it is that you're being brought for. Some bring you because they want a name, or they have different reasons for having you come into a space.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be so conscious of who you are and what you're called to do, and do that, period, that you can't veer or take off of that. One of the hugest threats is feeling like there is no community and no sense to be a part of, and that there's no other world. So many times you end up having persons try to sound like what's acceptable for community.
Mm.
And that's why you sound bad. I had one of my clients, and she's actually not, this is when this is not a preacher I was dealing with. It's not that you're not good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's that when you start trying to qualify or do what it is that you do for someone else, that is when you decline, when you're not in your own strength, you're not in your own space, you're not in your own gift. And I think one of the hugest challenges with leadership is submitting underneath leadership because another leader is popular, not because they're a leader. A true leader is not intimidated by another leader. They're not going to be intimidated because it's going to be in you to help want to lead that. It's in your space to do. But a person that is intimidated by who you are, and they notice that you're hungry and trying to get into a space, they're going to belittle you in their space because that's where they feel more empowered than you. It's in that little space.
Right.
You're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to be beaten. You're going to be used. All of those things in your emotions that you were writing about in that chapter of your book, Decennial Decisions, to me, oftentimes those are really reflections of a community that has to reject you because you really won't accept that community that reject you was a community of rejects in the first place, that you should have never been looking for acceptance from in the first place.
So then, herein lies the issue for me, and y'all bear with me. It's my birthday, so I'm gonna get some help tonight. So we have identified that they're going to, just do what it is they're going to do. We know that we're never going to fit in. We've done what we can do. We've tried it several ways. Now we've realized, listen, it's up to us to now build our platform. Now here lies the issue. Once you get to that place, right, and you say, well, I'm over it, I tried, it doesn't work out, and you begin to build, what begins to happen is they go on a campaign to discredit your platform. They say stuff like, oh, they're bastards and they don't want to wait their turn, and they don't want to be they don't want to be trained, and they want to just try to change the way that things are, and this is the principle that we see in the word, and it becomes hard in one way to not just say, well, to hell with all of y'all anyway. Because I'm gonna be honest, in the Decennium decisions, I'm gonna be honest, it's a big to hell with you to a lot of the ideologies that people are passing off as sound doctrine. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. It's not a bitter book at all, but I tear down so many myths, and I come against so many systems that control the economics and the mindset of people, because I got fed up with the church being intimidated by intellect and information. But then now, here I go. I put the flyer up. Oh, well, people, don't want to wait, and people just want to have all these renegades and all these rebels and all of these. Oh, no, I can show you some emails. I can show you some inboxes and it almost made me go, I'm not going to have it. The gentleman that I love and loves me back is the one that said, no, what you're going to do is you're going to do what you want to do. And who's going to be there is going to rock with you. And who's not going to be there is not going to rock with you. And one person actually isn't on this fire because of that very thing. I love you, but I got to kind of keep how we roll a secret because, people kind of think. And so for me, I might be strong enough to handle it now, but me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to take that. I would have just packed up my bag and went home with my ball in my back. I want you to talk to those people that are the villain. I want you to talk to those people who are typecast. What can they do to just be strong enough to get to the point where they can be like you and I?
One of the things that you have to do again is fully die and fully embrace that is sometimes it's going to be a calling, and it's going to be your calling, and it's your duty. You know, so, I don't know if I'm the villain sometimes, but I'll tell you about me. I've been in ministry. I'm 40, so I've been in ministry almost 20 something plus years. So I know what it is to be basic and boring. Who wants to do that? No one wants to die boring. What I do, one of the things that I do is people will make you the villain in situations because you have an opinion. If you have an opinion that is different from the culture, you're going to be somebody's villain. Whether you know it or not, you're going to be a villain. So you're asking yourself, am I going to be a flunky, or am I going to be somebody's villain? And some of the things and some of the challenges that I've had, or I won't even necessarily call them challenges, is there were those who want to break you down because of the position or the posture that they're in. Well, I'm totally not into that. The moment you try to break me down, I mean, the antagonist in me is going to find a way to resist. Period.
Because you already have your voice, and you're already someone that's.
But I want to take you backwards. This is how I've always been. I've been like this in employment. I have sued law firms at a very young ages that I can't even talk about. My gifts, I have dreamed. My wife will tell you, I have literally dreamed and had dreams. People will call me, I will walk through dreams. There probably those are online right now and will walk people through walls and through courtrooms, doctors' rooms, I guarantee you. And from those spaces, God has blessed me. And he's blessed me being some good positions and some great positions in that space. But from a young age, some of my friends, we were preachers. We went from a youth revival. We got hired for a job, and they be talking to them like they crazy. I'm like, who the hell are you talking to? Job as a young man. My manager. I'm nice. I'm cool, but I'm very opposite. So when I get in that other space where my kindness is taken advantage of, there is a dark one that lives inside of this light one that comes out, and it is so very opposite and very different. And people are very shocked and surprised, but I'm gonna defend my space and my turf. And that's always been me. I'm like that with my friends. Don't call me when you're in the middle of something. Call me when you're at the end and you're ready to not turn back, because that's when I'm gonna be my greatest. We're not going back, right? We good? Call me then. That temperament, if I'm not careful, I could allow someone to make me think that there's something wrong with that when that's my placement. That's who I am. It helps me to lead, and it helps me to lead other leaders in how they lead and what it is that they're called to do and how it is that they're called to do. If everything about you that's great and that's strong and that's passionate is shut down, then you can't merge worlds and do what it is that you need to do the way that you need to do it. When I encounter certain people, I don't encounter them and treat them like you're so high and I'm so low. I don't look all the way up to you. I don't approach you just because you're a senior and give you respect. I don't give you disrespect, but no, I don't respect you.
Okay.
My respect is earned. And so because it's an earned respect, and I respect people that are respectable, and that's whether you're in a high position or whether you're in no position or wherever, those are the values and principles that are meaningful to me, and those are rules that govern. So when you defy one of my values or principles and you remind me and you start acting like a negress, guess what? I'm going to return that favor, and I'm going to be the same way, and I'm going to give you that probably in stronger capacity. I become the villain.
So now I have another question. What happens when we get to the performance area and the people who prepared, we have now surpassed the people who prepared us?
Long before you get there, people will try to kill you for multiple reasons, for what you did or for what you didn't do. Even those who you may have found yourself trusting and relying on early will take your secrets the moment you start growing and get into a certain space, and will expose it just to level you. You may not even know it, you'll run into it.
Now, Tom, a lot of you don't know this, but he is the mastermind behind a lot of the different crisis management things that you have seen happen in the kingdom. Um, I'm saying that because I want to get to this point. You just said that is when people often begin to take things about your past and begin to try to expose you to be able to cause some, measure of shame or breach or embarrassment. How do we handle crisis in that way without A, being ungodly, and B, still maintaining our audience? Because one thing I often tell people, it's a sociological fact that when things shift, some people leave, and it's not always because it's a negative thing. It's just timing. There are different circumstances. They may have just parlayed to the degree that they needed to, and they don't want to go any further. But because church always teaches that dumb everybody can't go with you theory, and then they also teach that that theory of they either tell you everybody can't go with you, or you can never leave the side of your leader. What happens when that begins to happen, and things about your past are now beginning to be exposed, and they're not necessarily a lie? Like, there's some stuff you did it. I slept with the person. I slept with the person's husband. I slept, I stole the money. Like, whatever that is. How do we manage crisis without losing ground?
One of the things is honesty. Just be straightforward. Be honest if you need to. And sometimes that honesty is brutally honest. Is some of the people that have questions about me don't deserve those answers.
Oh,
you don't deserve that me. You don't deserve that me any more than I deserve that from you. You don't deserve my business any more than I deserve your business. There's also a fast forward. People change. Who I am right now is no longer who I was 5 years ago. No longer who I was 10 years ago. There are people that 10 years ago you received me 10 years ago because, yeah, I was in a different age bracket. Yeah, I was in a horrible marriage. Yes, I was married to somebody who was beating me, and the person that was beating me hated you, so I had to hate you and block you too. So there are so many different circumstances. Yeah, I hated you because my spiritual father said you were a demon and a witch, but now that I'm not under that situation, I realized that you were the one setting me free. Yeah, I was giving them all my money. You never asked me for anything. You set me free for $20, and they was beating me and keeping me in bondage, and I was giving them half my money, and you don't even do me halfway like that, and I'm free, I'm liberal. I don't have to sweat with you, sleep with, I don't have to do any of that stuff. And sometimes the poison is so deep within an individual that when they don't receive that abuse, they've associated that abuse with a love, and that becomes the relationship, especially if they've already experienced some level of abuse. My response to many of those spaces is, it is really healthy to know yourself, and it's also healthy for me always. I've never been a person to limit myself to one space or to one culture.
Can you say that again?
And I've never been a person to limit myself to one person and one culture, ever. And that's in church, that's in business, in any way, shape, or form. The moment you do that, you set yourself up to be blackballed, blue-balled, white-balled, all balls. You will be screwed with no lube whatsoever when your entire world is wrapped up into one type person. So my range is from, if you want to deal with just if you want to talk church alone, Baptist, used to be in a Baptist church, a Methodist mission, in all of those different spaces. My goal is not to be one thing in one space, but my goal is to be in so many different spaces that if one does not work, I have so many healthy relationships in my life for various reasons that have nothing to do with the base reason, because sometimes people can think ministry is based upon just preaching alone, and it really is not. There are people's lives who are changed. There are people bring me in that are in all types, you probably have, that are in all types of scenarios. Mm-hmm. There's some people that can't do what you think. What's so amazing about them? What's so awesome? Why do they like them? You can't figure it out online. You need an experience. I'm a whole experience. Mm-hmm. You need an experience. And there are those, in reading your book, I heard those words come through, your writings, who is an experience. Not only am I a conversation, but I'm such a conversation that whatever you've heard in history in times past, what we are clear about, I'm interesting enough to make the conversation. Matter of fact, I enjoy being the villain. By the time I've even had challenges with, or I'm not going to say challenges, but differences with people in ministry, even seniors, senior well-knowners, I don't regret it. I do it all over again the exact same way.
Well, see, here's
Sometimes by the time I finished, it turned into open doors. For some, like it's closed doors. No, because here's what I knew prophetically, and here's what I know internally. And I've said this to other people. And they've called me in trouble. I said, wait a minute, let me close my eyes and see. You call me in an hour. Before I know it, I'll be like, bling, 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 bling. Checks in the mail, bling, bling, bling. Atkinson, you know, don't they? What happened? And boom, voila. Here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. These directives, they help you in life. They help you in spaces that you need to be in. Even who I fight is prophetic. Now, y'all write that down in the comment section.
You know what? David
okay?
and Goliath. Come on, you know what?
David and Goliath.
You pick your opponent.
Before David, I don't fight low. I don't do any of that. So those who's called me villain, I select wise. David was a fighter. Samson was a fighter. I pick my opponents. So if someone picks on me or picks with me, guess what? Am I going to whoop this one? This is what was made David successful in whooping lions, bears, and Goliaths and giants, is because he asked before he fought. By nature, I'm a fighter. I've always been a fighter. And I'm going to be a fighter. I want to die a fighter. I don't want God to change that about me. I don't want God to make me less antagonistic. I don't want God to not make me a villain. If you come at me crazy, I'm going to come at you crazy. I believe that many of the believers and the preachers have been locked into being this personality and this person that they are not. And they are trying to suppress themselves under titles that are not biblical, that are not godly. When you look at John the Baptist, he was eating locusts and honey. He was different. David was killing folks with swords, with rocks. Samson was whooping folk with the jawbone of an ass. You mean to tell me that God has called me into this generation and I can't slap nobody? I can't write a post. I can't say anything. And Peter got to cuss. And now this generation has got to be so isolated and so locked in. And I have to say, yay, 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 when I get to the gates. And he's going to say, you don't get to get in because you said something bad to the bishop. Get the hell out of here.
Exactly. And one thing that I've grown to know is that the church has poor socialization skills. Okay. We see that in the denominational divides. We see it in the divides between women and men that are in ministry. We see it in the divides. Now we have the affirming churches and things of that nature. And the thing that always, is very curious to me is that we want to tell everybody how they should socialize, who they should socialize with. But the reality of the matter is we do not even have structure that promotes unity in the body of Christ anymore. I remember when, I first got saved, we would go and visit another church. You had, midnight musicals and things of that nature where all churches would kind of come together. Because one thing I will say about New York, and I will say this, we got problems, but we don't have problems like I've seen certain people have problems. Like, y'all can get mad at me, but that whole DMV area, it's like, listen, if you're not on program, we not coming. If you not, if it's not your favorite preacher, you're not coming. In New York, we got that kind of a little thing going on too. But when it matters, we know how to pull together. How can we begin to teach people how to socialize on a level that's going to bring about not just unity, but fruitfulness? Because I'm going to be honest, I am of the opinion and I am of the belief that we are the most fruitless generation yet. And I know that people might be very upset about the fact that I just verbalized that, but I do not see the harvest that my forefathers saw. I don't, not because we don't see the large gatherings, because the way we communicate is even different. The way we socialize as a church now, we're online because of the quarantine, but I do not feel and I do not see the fruit that I believe we're supposed to be seeing. What are some ways that, and we're coming to a close soon, what are some ways that we as the body of Christ can be supportive to each other's visions, endeavors, how can we create safer spaces for leaders? How can we just, what say you?
Be honest. There are people who, I would say, first of all, be honest. Be honest with you. Be honest with your wants, with your desires, and be honest also with your sub wants and your sub goals. You know, I've had honest conversations even about when it comes time for fellowships. I know what I bring to the table. I know who I am. I play a good second man if I need to be in second. I play a good first man. But if you have me in this, but if I'm in a second position, I'm going to be compensated for being in that second position well. Okay. You know, I want it, it needs to be beneficial for me, because I don't work well being in situations where I'm not compensated for my services, because I serve too well not to be compensated for my services. And I'm not young, I'm not an apprentice. So I know what I bring to the table. Because of that, I know that I should not work with someone that is going to not respect that. I can work with a narcissist. Matter of fact, I've told certain people, you know, in certain positions I said to them, to my superior, you know, I like you better. I think you're very arrogant. I don't think you're humble. And I think that you should lead with your arrogance and not with this humility, because when you lead with humility, you do it bad. You end up becoming arrogant, and then people don't know what to deal with. So just be arrogant, because I can deal with that, because you're not switching. So let me know who you are and be that, and be cool with that, because I can totally deal with that personality type. But if you switch up on me, I know me enough to know that when you switch on me, I switch on you. So you're going to get a different me. Mm-hmm. So being honest about your work style, what works for you professionally, spiritually, all of those things, you need experiences to know what you're like. My expectation is if you come to me at a certain age, and this is, you know, even my leaders, my leadership, I'm used to dealing with leaders. If you come to me at a certain age in a certain space, you can't come to me based upon I'm hurt. Well, how old are you? Well, you shouldn't still be getting hurt over the same things that hurt you over and over again. What you gonna do about it? You get hurt in your 20s and your teens, you're like, I'm gonna let it go. You get hurt later, I'm gonna do something back. Where are you with what you wanna do? Tell me what you wanna do so I know how to work. Those conversations help for people to know where you are and how you're gonna work and gel in relationships that are gonna be progressive, or that it's gonna be a project assignment. We're gonna do this for a season or for a moment, or it's gonna be long-term. That's how I know what and how I'm gonna work, and if that community is gonna work. The church of old had community. They had so many other things that plugged into what church became. They didn't have our communities. They didn't have our transportation, our cars, our airplanes, our accesses, our roadways, our flights. So they're localized. People came down the street to get information about what's going on in the community. They didn't have our newspapers, our outlets. So there were so many other things that took place in church, where now that there are other resources, there are other outlets, there are other spaces to go. People have other ways to receive it. Because there's no community focus, or there may not necessarily be community focus in a lot of these spaces, there's a dancing focus. There's a, we got to go to convocation focus. There may be a, we don't wear this focus. So many other focus that are not necessarily community-based. They're culture-based. They're culture-based, but not community-based.
That's good.
And because of that, you have leaders that are called, that are culture-based leaders, but not necessarily community-based leaders that are called to leadership. And it's not, also in churches, it may not even necessarily be Christ-centered. You don't see altar calls and people coming to Christ. So they're not coming to Christ, not coming to community. There's no one else to come to aside from spiritual mama, spiritual daddy. So you see that emptying out when I don't need all of that. You'll see that community leaving and bleeding out. When you as an individual want to come into a culture or come into a space in fellowship, I can't fellowship so much with people that just want to have those communities, because I'll be a threat because I'm too much of a leader. They'll think I'm there to steal their people, to steal what they have. It's a threat to those environments. And so you have to be realistic about who you are and what communities are going to embrace who you are and be able to accept it and what is not. And most of these hood rats will not be able to, they are hood rats in capes and collars. You got to be a little hood to get around in there, and you got to be clear about that. You need fried chicken bags. You need to be hood to be in those spaces. Otherwise, they'll invite you to fight you. So some of this unity, like, I don't believe in unity. I don't believe I should be unified with everybody. Okay. There's some people I shouldn't be unified with. I don't go around certain people and my goal is to fellowship or to be your brother or your sister or your son. And that's not my goal. My goal is to have an enjoyable moment and an enjoyable time with you while I'm there, and to leave you with a great impression, and for us to go our separate ways and to do what we need to do for project work, for the purpose that we need to do it, and to move on and to be successful, not to develop relationships that are going to take us in spaces that we really don't need to go in together because we're too grown for all of that.
Do you see the climate and the landscape and maybe even the leadership in the church as a whole? Do you see that shifting anytime soon? Or do you think that the status quo that we have been dealing with and the structure that we have been dealing with as the body of Christ, and I'll make this indicative, so I'll say in the Black church, okay, aesthetic, do you see that landscape shifting or changing anytime soon? Or do you just see that there will be the remnant that are going to just be committed to doing what they can in the spaces that they are allowed to?
I believe that as long as you believe that those are the spaces that you're only allowed to operate in, that you are a huge part of the problem. I believe that in order to be liberated and get into your space, you have to disbelieve those systems, disbelieve in the existence, take the existence of that out of your mind, because you'll never be important in that space as long as you see those spaces as important. God will bless you when you don't care about it, when that's not your focus. I've seen people lose their mind trying to get the stages and platforms that I have been to and I am underwhelmed with thoroughly.
Okay.
Not underwhelmed with it because but because it's not a fit. It's not a fit. There are rooms that you can go in, and when you really realize sometimes what goes into that, and I'm not talking about sin particularly, I'm talking about how it eats away at who you are and what you truly represent in order to make you fit in a staple of something that is, versus you answering who you are. It eats you away if you can't be and exist in the space that you are, because you're answering that space and not answering your call.
Amen. And what you're saying is so real, because one thing that people love to always say when they start talking about changing of the guards or things being put in order in the churches, they love to use the example of Jesus flipping the tables and running the money changers out of the temple. And what I think that a lot of people don't understand about the liturgy of that text is that it was more of a symbolic thing that Jesus did than it was a physical thing in that moment. And so a lot of us, we don't have problems sparring one-on-one, but we're not courageous enough to begin to challenge the systems that govern the way that people are living and the way that people are operating within the structure of the church. And as I said earlier, because we are so poorly socialized, we don't mind having the incidents, and we don't mind having that hand-to-hand combat every once in a while. But we are, as a collective, I believe that the remnant is actually growing weary. We are strengthened from time to time when we have forums like this where people can just come and give truth. Because one thing I've learned is that people think they crazy. Okay, people will hear something and it will be like they are almost scared to either share or to mention certain things, because the enemy has your mind to the point where it's like, girl, don't say that to nobody because you sound crazy. Now you sound whatever. And then finally, when we have that moment of courage and clarity simultaneously, and then we say what it is that is in our heart, then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. You mean there's more people in the cave? And the one thing that I love is that when people read that scripture, they say, they were hidden in the cave. God said, listen, when God was having a discourse with the prophet, he said, I hid them. People always just act like the prophets went in there. And a lot of us, what we have to understand is that we are hidden, but we are not alone in the midst of what is going on. So you cannot be afraid to speak truth to power. I put up a post earlier today where I said, you know, folk names go from blue to black on Facebook when you begin to speak truth to power, meaning that they're your friend and they're in the blue as long as you're saying what it is. But the minute that you say something crazy, you go and click on your post, and where their name was blue, now it is black. And see, one thing about me, ain't nothing about me colorblind. If the truth is something that offends you to a place of disconnection, then that means that you are not part of my community. We're gonna use that. I know if Burks is on tonight, she's probably in her house or running up and down the roof.
Who's that?
Sharon Burks, because I want her to understand why she was so pivotal to be pulling together the pieces the way that I did. But I digress. So I say that to say the one thing that I want people to leave with tonight is, one, you're not crazy, and two, you're not alone. This is not something. Listen, your fullness and your process and you coming into who it is that you are in God is something that we all go through. But what I don't want you to do is, I don't want you to lose heart in the midst of the transition. There are going to be people along the way. Let me tell you something. God will use books to mentor you and sustain you until a physical person has the capacity to be able to listen, to begin to be able to guide and direct you. I had purpose in my secular life. I had success in my secular life. I always tell people the reason I ain't have to come on this side begging for money is because I made my own way before I got over here. Okay.
Won't he do it?
At times where things have happened. Yes, I had cancer twice. You blow through your savings. So now you begin to walk by, faith and not by sight. But the reality of the matter is, no matter where it is that Dr. OJ goes in the world, even if I don't have the REV, the DR will always make me money. The DR will always open the door for me to be able to introduce the Christ that you say that you have. And so one thing that I need everybody to get in their spirit, if nothing else, is that you make sure that you connect with a person that can see you. He let us know tonight we have to be identified. And from the identification, now it begins to become a process where you are being trained in your courage, where you are being placed, where you are being pointed in the right direction, and that you are being affirmed. That was the word I was looking for. He did not he wasn't telling me, oh, you're so wonderful. But what he was doing was, in the midst of God using him to process me, he was affirming the good that was there. He was saying, okay, don't say it like that next time. You could say that better. You know a whole bunch of words, Holcomb. Make sure you don't use that one again, because if you're trying to maneuver in this circle, you don't want people to be intimidated. You want to be able to find yourself personable. And it took time. Because I'm going to be honest, you can get so callous in this thing where you really don't even care no more. Like, there's some people that once upon a time, I wanted to be connected. I wanted to be in their favor. I wanted to be in their good graces. And now if they rolled up to me and said hi, I would act like I was a deaf mute, okay? I would look at them like they're crazy. Not because I'm bitter, but because now I have clarity. Do you not realize that there are a lot of people that are under the sound of our voice right now, Prophet, that in their mind, they are aspiring to be like someone who ain't even where they claim that they're at? Because with all the smoke and mirrors of social media, and with all the smoke and mirrors of being able to make things look one way, we are starting to see slowly but surely. I wish I could just get one heart tonight. It's 29 people on here.
Hello.
And ain't nobody saying nothing back to us. Ain't nobody.
I think that's shit, and I share this on my page.
Is that there are a lot of people that we are now seeing being snatched down, and because now we have people who think that being, the talebearer of everybody's business is a ministry. We got people getting put on blast left and right and left, and nobody. Okay, listen, you know what always makes me mad? When I see that these blogs put people on blast and not one preacher reaches out to bandage or to salvage the good that is in the person. It's almost like, the Good Samaritan. Listen, you got people right now, and let me tell you how bad it is right now. You got people right now who will not stop to help you. But not only will they not stop to help you, they will impede other people who are willing to help you from helping you. And when we find out we are in this place in the body of Christ, that lets us know that those of us who have been on the backside of the desert, and those of us who have been, you know, in a place of obscurity in ministry, this is the time for us to get courageous. We don't have time to be worried about who don't like us. We don't have time to worry about, will I fit in? We don't even have time to try to run down our credentials to somebody. I have a thing now. I don't have to introduce myself with my letters, because my words will begin to introduce me. When I am in certain circles now, I know how to flow a bit better and more seamlessly. But that came with time. That came with time. Listen, man of God, leave us with the word. If you can see everybody, I posted.
I want to say, and I know we have been on.
No, listen, they still sitting steady, so we can go in. I'm
Y'all
just
sitting steady. Y'all sitting steady. Y'all say go.
come on.
You said something earlier, and one of the things I'm not gonna say you can't be afraid of to do is to be offensive. Be offensive, because there are those that even watching, those in leadership, make bold moves. I move everything by timing. Like, there are people I know I'm supposed to meet, and if I know I'm supposed to meet you, I'm going to see your face. I may know you before I even meet you. You meet them, and it's like, boom, I think I've known you my whole life. Some parties, like, this ain't my season to be around. It's not my season to be connected. I move my life by those patterns. No, I don't see you in my month of May.
Woo! Come on.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't know. It's about 7 people I need to meet this month, and when I hit my 7, goodbye.
Jesus.
Even who sows and who gives, I'll know it. I mean, boom, boom, boom. Things will come. You become so, and I'm talking not from one place, from strange places. I don't know where, but you'll know it. You'll sense it. And there are people that you will connect to, and that they will know. And so you said something about the changing of the guards earlier. I've heard that so much about this changing of the guards, and even that, there's a bondage in that to me. The guards that people are saying there's going to be a change from, these guards ain't been guarding nothing in a long time. What if the guards guarded it? See, if we're changing the guards, and the guards that we're saying are guards haven't guarded anything because all of these things have gotten by, gotten past, then the guards have not been guards. So if I believe there's a changing of the guards, and I'm waiting for these guards to start guarding, then I'm waiting for a date that'll never come, because the guards have not guarded enough for me to now change with them. Those guards can't teach me how to guard, because those guards have not guarded. Those guards can't instruct me about what guardianship are, because those guards don't even have guardianship over me. Why am I giving guardianship over guards that have not guarded? And I'm basically living my life giving regards to guards that have not guarded, that cannot guard, that don't guard. And now I'm waiting to be the next guard, getting regarded for not regarding as well too. And these are the spaces that we call kingdom guards. No, my first job is to stop believing that people that are not guarding are guarding. Would you live in a house or in a home where you are paying this much for security, and you're riding up in your home continuously and consistently is being burglarized? No, there's a problem with the security system if these are guards. And that's not a slight to those spaces, but I think we as persons that even label sometimes and fall into these conversations, because the conversations have been set before us. It's important to ask questions. It's important to challenge systems, and not even challenge the systems because you're a challenging person, but because there's nothing wrong with asking questions, because that's what people that want to grow do.
My God.
What many churches have done, or some cultures have done, I won't blame and lock it into church, but even when I go spaces, if you're not careful going into certain environments, they will play so much music that you can't even hear yourself talk. You're drowned out. And that's not against a musician or anyone. Sometimes they're so used to the person not saying anything that's supposed to say anything, that the music becomes the dominant factor. So all you've really heard is good music. You've never heard solid content. So you've had no leadership. You don't know that you've not received instruction on how to guard, because all you heard was great music. You had great dancing, but you don't know how to guard anything. So your family is open, your marriage is open, your mind is open, your dream life is open, because you've fallen in love with the music and you've had no consistency. So there's no guardianship. So everyone is open. So the state of the church, I believe that the church is an unguarded church. Because the church is unguarded, I believe it's thoroughly unguarded. I believe that many times it even talks supremacists about holiness is really, a lot of times for many parties, this is something that is used to safeguard or to protect the system or to just give enough words to make you believe that we are still plugged into this space, but there's no guardianship. So when I look at people and parties and leaders, even sometimes falling in certain scandals and certain things of that sort, or in those spaces, you know, my immediate resolve or my immediate thought is not that I have to limit it to what's in front of me. I choose not to believe that narrative. A changing of guards is going to be an honesty, number one. So the honesty in persons and parties and communities it's not been guarded in a long time. So when I meet people that say, I don't have a covering, some would say, oh, the blood of Jesus against you, you don't have a covering. When I hear people say they don't have a covering, I said, that's because you have a clue. And you're welcome.
And you're welcome. Okay. Now I have a question, because since you said you got a little bit more left, how do we get people to a place of trust in these relationships again? Because, you know, look, the Bible lets us know, God said it's not good for men to be alone. And I know we use that in the context of marriage quite frequently, but if the Bible lets us know, fail not to assemble yourselves, then that means that in the eyes of God, community is something that is important. Mm-hmm. How do we get people back? How do we nurse people and get them out the ICU and offer life support to out the door, or at least in rehab?
Number one, a community focus, a genuine and honest community focus has always been a strength. It has to be genuine, honest. I came in a time where we still were, you know, church and ministry were very community involved. Heck, I used to do times at the prisons and juvenile facilities and things of that sort. So it gave you a way to speak to community. A lot of parties don't know how to speak. They don't know how to speak to communities, don't know how to speak to people. They know how to speak one language or to speak to one type person or one type party.
So the thing we need to do first is language. Adopt language.
Language is huge. Language is very huge. I'm very huge on language. I can say a message a million different ways. And when I get on, if I'm online, for example, I don't do a lot of strolling on social media. I have more so in the quarantine, but the people I really enjoy best are those who say their message in their own way. Mm-hmm. When I see the redundance of it all, like 50 million people are going to get on and say, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
I was glad when they said unto me, I just can't.
You know, they're going to say that the same way. Well, guess what? You know, I wasn't glad when they said unto me. I was glad when they said unto me, I get the quarantine this Sunday. And you're welcome. You hear me? So what are people going to pay more attention to? They're going to look on my page and say, oh my God. And somebody's going to say, wait a minute. I am a little sleepy, and I am a little glad that I just get to relax today. I don't have to sing. I mean, I don't have to have nobody try to make me spit out my gum. I mean, somebody's child, somebody's husband.
Somebody's breath. Yes.
This goes on. And they're like, how could you do this how could you say something like this? Well, guess what? You're coming back tomorrow. If I'm not in your conversation, I'm doing something totally wrong.
Jesus.
If something I'm saying is not making you come, oh my God. Because people are going to watch anyway. I don't write for your likes. I write for where I am and for the purposes that I am for. And I don't goal to reach, you know, multiple, you know, I'm not here for an affirmation or for attention or for a like or for an approval. I'm here because I want to be, and whoever I'm there for, whether it be one or whomever, I'm good with that. You know, I'm good with that and in that space. And I believe that right now, what is happening with many of the leaders, you're being plugged right back into a security that a lot have lost. And they've lost security and they've lost their soul. Some artists, some leaders, singers, you were better before you were trying to get in these certain networks. You were greater, you were stronger, more secure. Now you got your hair and everything. You look like these people, and they didn't look so good when they were doing it. And now you running behind here. You had a better hairdresser. Now you changed your hairdresser, your clothes. You got all of these ruffles, and you can't wear those outfits to any place aside from that one place, and you waste all this money, paying all this money, putting on something that you can't do nothing with but in that space. And to you, it's the biggest world because you've invested so much into one world. And anyone that doesn't invest into that one world like you see that person as a threat to that world or as a rebel because they don't see your world as you see your world. And unfortunately, what many people do when they're spiritual is they ascribe their thoughts or their ideas or their world to God. And God is not as limited as our worlds. He's big. He's large. If I was sarcastic, he would like me. If I'm optimistic, he loves me. If I'm pessimistic, he loves me. If I'm a messy, sloppy gossip, he loves me. I'm worthy of his love. If I'm an alcoholic and a drunk and a crazy and a psychotic, I'm worthy of his love and I'm worthy of his calling. And if everything you said about me is absolutely true, I'm still worthy of his love. I'm worthy of his calling. I mean, regardless of that, whatever you could say that could be as terrible as it could, that could be said about an angel or about a LeRon, about a whomever. The beauty about God and his calling is that it can all be 1000% true. God knew it, foreknew it, and he did not change his mind. So anything anybody can say about me, I'm in full agreement with you about it. I can say I agree, and you still have to take that up with God. So nothing disqualifies me. So someone can say I'm a rebel or I'm a villain or I'm a whoever I am, that's what makes me beautiful. And that is what I'm going to leverage. I'm going to lay on the gas. I'm going to enjoy it. And if you're in my way, I'm going to run you over, and I'm still going to be worthy of the love of God and the forgiveness of God. And that is how deep his love is.
My God.
And to be lost in that and to be secure in that and to not take any slight or slack from that. And to be clear that height, depth, nothing like that's going to separate me from the love. Now, it may separate me from your culture. It may separate me from your preference. But as it pertains to the love space, I'm really good in that department. And it's so rare to find people in the body of Christ, leadership that are secure in who they are. That's a rarity. Apostles, insecure. Bishops, insecure. Prophets, insecure. Prophetesses, insecure, 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 insecure in your hat, insecure with your holy oil, insecure with your prayer kits, insecure, 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 insecure in your flyer, insecure in the lineup, insecure on these television, insecure, insecure, insecure. And when they sniff security on an individual that they can't rape and that can't be molested, automatically it's a threat. And you're a threat to a community, you're a threat to a world. And so to those people who are secure, and I mean not in your look, but in who you are, who God calls you to be, you need extra grace and extra mercy to make it through a culture of so many persons and personalities that really are not.
Wow. Listen to
the changing of the guard, the next guard, the guards, they have to first be secure, be able to secure yourself before you can even secure a nation or a world. I think many of those are called, oh, I'm going to the nations. You're not going to the nations. These messages and these words are so limited to neighborhoods and to people. Y'all don't even watch CNN and understand world news to have a voice to nations. You don't know people that live in other nations, of cultures and different things of that sort. But just to say we're going to nations, we are nations right now. The moment you hit a button,
that's it.
We're in nations.
And one thing that I you know, it may seem a bit trivial, but you know me, I love the link. I love words. We have a lot of people who are guards, but we don't have a lot of guardians. Okay. And so let me make the differentiation. We have a lot of people who don't mind. They don't mind protecting things. Okay. And one of the things that I'm learning is that a lot of the guards in the church, they're not protecting the people. They're protecting things. When you look up that word and you begin to break it down, okay, you will see that when you see the word use of guards, it is normally people who are sent to protect something. Guardians are people that generally protect people. And so in the church, we have a lot of people who are protecting the altar, they're protecting the money, they're protecting the office of the pastor, but not the pastor, because there are a lot of people, and we have to be honest about this. There are a lot of people, they are not protecting us. Okay, it's just like in Black Panther. I don't know if you remember this, but there is a scene when Killmonger says, well, is this your king? And he's beating him up, and the woman in the Dorm of Malaj turns to the captain of the army, and she says, can we do nothing? And she said, listen, he is the king now. We are protecting the throne. We are not protecting him. We are protecting the throne. And see, this is why you have to begin to identify in your life. Listen, who is there that is protecting you? Who is protecting LeRon? Who is protecting Angel? Who's protecting Sharon? Who's protecting Cynthia? Who is protecting us versus who is protecting the vested interest that they have in us? Because that leads back to what we initially started with and brings things full circle, that the reason why we have poor socialization is because we do not have things properly identified. And when something is not properly identified, it cannot be properly placed. And if something cannot be properly placed, then that means that the infrastructure is always going to be something that is faulty, and you're always going to find something that can tumble the building. And so when we're looking at a lot of our relationships now, this is why you have to make decisions that you base them. And the reason why I did it in a 10-year span and not just a year is because a lot of the stuff that we're believing God for, we have to have, listen, long and short term. And what people in the body of Christ do that is, you know, it's unfortunate, and it's because we don't know better, because we lack information and we fear intellect, is that we are living day to day by daily bread, not understanding that, yeah, we're living by daily bread, but if we were, but if planning ahead was not necessary, then why do we have a storehouse? Why would he say, bring it to the storehouse if all we need is the daily bread? Oh, I'm just taking it one day at a time. Oh, I'm just taking it, you know, here a little, there a little. No. You have to get to the point where you begin with the end in mind. And the way that you do that first is by, is by simple identification. There's a lot of people. I remember one time, you know, the Lord said to me so clear. He said, well, the reason that you ain't getting the money is because you still, you know, dealing with that person. And I'm not going to give you this money for you to go over here and fool up with this ninja. I'm not doing that. Broke up with the fool, the money came right on through. And so
those moments, Dr. O, they're lessons that God teaches you early in life before you ever even get to where you're going to be, that will be reminders of you of how to function when you get into these other spaces. They're indicators. There are times that I know exactly what to do with the money. As a matter of fact, there was a lawsuit that I had some years ago, a very healthy lawsuit. I had dreamed about it before it even happened. I had no idea. It was 3 years earlier. I had this dream. I was getting ready to move and do some things. So I had this dream. The dream that I have about this money comes on through. Well, from that dream, now God had already told me what I was supposed to do with this money. I knew exactly what to do with it. When I tried to do something else with it, immediately I knew. You know, there are moments, but it prepares you. And there were other things he tests you with to see how you're going to manage money. How are you going to manage this space? How are you going to manage that space so that your voice can be trusted? You know, to be honest, I think a lot of times people want to be in spaces so fast and so quick when your voice is underdeveloped and your experience. Great voice, low experience. So you have people that have high voices and they grow in great spaces and no experience. And so you have a great gift, but because you're so great and someone else sees you as a great gift with no experience, they'll take advantage of your lack of experience and use your gift. So now you have this great gift and now you have all of these horrible experiences because someone that was ahead of you exploited you not being experienced. So now when you are gifted, and now when you learn these experiences, the experiences that you learned because you were young and gifted combined, Now they have all these things to say about you. No one says, wait a minute, you were young. But if you then turn around and say to that same person, but look at your child is that age. They doing a lot better than the one you raised. And you're welcome.
And you're
They're
welcome.
like, you a villain. How could you say that? That's me. No, in perspective, we make excuses and pardons where it is acceptable. But truth be told, these are the things that develop and that cause you and make you a voice, not just a sound, but an experience. And to be honest, to say that earlier was too early, that's really a revelation. I think that many people are going to be better after they die. Like after you've experienced some lives and some deaths and being talked about and scandalized, everyone is not going to be able to understand me. They're not going to be able to understand you. I don't want people in my life that have never died. That means you're going to practice on me. And I'm not one to practice on because I'm not there. When you come to me new and you bringing these experiences, expecting me to be patient, don't expect me to be patient because that may not be the level of patience that I'm on. With certain people, I'm like, no, because I can see in your eyes, you're going to take me for a ride. And I know my triggers. So if you come try to take me for a ride, I'm telling you, I'm going to drive you there. And it's not going to be a problem. You're going to be in your feelings. You're going to believe that, oh my God, you know, Prophet Atkinson hurt me. I hurt you because you were playing with the wrong person.
I can't take it.
You should have played with somebody else that played them practice games because I'm not even in that space. You know, I'm not going to be, I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. And I know
what you said earlier, find your parents. Find them.
And that's exactly what, find your parents. I've had folks, they want to be like your spiritual children. I've seen it both ways. So I'm not coming against one space. They'll pretend like they're your children and show up at your door and want to move in your place and think you're supposed to take care of them and think wait, I'm not your real daddy. I'm not your real mama. You can't lay up on these breasts sucking and lipping and trying to get nursing. That's not here. And these crazy relationships and these crazy, you have no idea what really goes into the behind the scenes. So by the time you hear about it, I'm a real person.
I want to hit one more area before we go, just because I have you and I want your wisdom, because we have a generation now that don't know how to date. They don't know how to court. I don't, and I don't want you to go all the way in. Like I said, we're gonna come back, but I want you to deal with the importance of that measure of connection as it pertains to, you know, the overall makeup of who it is that you are. How are we picking? How do we pick? How do we know? Do we pick? Does God bring? Because, you know, people get mad at me when I say no, you know, it's not one person just created for you in the earth. No, I don't believe in the Eve principle. I believe that we are people, you know, and that's the sociologist in me, that have, you know, choices and tastes. We have things that we like. We have things that we are attracted to and drawn to. And I believe that God puts those people on the earth, and it is up to us to make a decision about who is the best fit for us. And I discussed that in Destiny Decisions, that you have to learn in relationships that it is a choice. It is not, oh, well, God said that's your husband, and so now there it is because somebody said that, and then 2 months later you're ready to kill them. How important is relationship, marriage, courtship? How important is that to our infrastructure?
I think it's very huge. And again, that's going to really come with a lot of things I talk about really hinge on identity and knowing yourself and knowing what works for you. And some are if you know that you're relational and you want love and that you want a relationship, there are certain things that as a leader, let's see, sometimes leaders can forget how to be who they are. You are a human being. You are a sexual being. There are times that, you know, I've seen leaders who want to be married, but they, you know, want to be married and may be interested in being married, male, female, whomever. And you're so busy giving off this image that you're superhuman and super deep that we don't even know. Like, you just want to be with Jesus all day? Are you even interested? Some of your choices in spaces, I don't know if I was someone I spoke to. Your choices, even in fellowship, is so dominated in everything that looks like you. It looks like don't nobody in it. Everything in his strong and aggressive and mean, nasty, like, Lord, send my husband. Lord, send him. You need a sedative. Your prayers are angry and aggressive and mad and hostile and volatile. Why is your warfare so angry?
Because it's crazy. They don't
Why
know.
are your prayers so hostile? You know, and so it's like, you know, it's scary, and they're so dominant. And sometimes you can even see spaces where the idea or the premise is, in order to be a strong spiritual woman, you got to have a soft, a weak man. I'm the powerful one in this relationship. Or vice versa, or somebody that's extremely weak. So compatibility is huge. I personally don't believe that Jesus is a matchmaker. I leer and steer full away from people involving the Holy Ghost, God, and prophecy, and who's your husband, who's your wife. I've seen it put people in psychotic institutions, etc. I've been around for a long time, so I've seen a whole lot of things. And
Put in jail. I
because
seen
of
people
that,
put in hell.
can really be manipulated financially, emotionally, everything, because someone is telling you, God said you're my husband or you're my wife. And what's really crazy is a person that's not used to those type of manipulative games. People are like, oh my God, LeRon, you like, you're such a pessimist. No, I'm a realist. I allow my mind to think about it all, because when my mind thinks about it all, I allow my mind to think the worst first, and we build from there, period. So that anything that you do will not surprise me, because I have already thought the worst. So if you're a good person, then worst case scenario, we don't even have to allow my mind to go on that other side. But before we get there, you have positivity, you have negativity. You start on the low, and then we build your way up, period. Because that works for me. It's earned.
Okay.
It's earned.
And then we have this new epidemic where people are marrying people knowing that they're gay, and then they want to cry warfare when it. But that's another time for another day. You know.
Oh, it's not even another topic. I mean, even in that, you know what the other topic would be one day when I break down that segment. There's some that would rather that. I think deeper than that, because sometimes we focus on sexuality. We will focus on someone is gay, or he's gay, or she's gay, or they're involved in this, etc. But the conversation of sexuality is so much larger. If it was just sexuality, I'd say, oh, that's simple and easy. Oh, you just married him because he's gay. Well, she married him because he's gay because she don't want to work, right? So she know him being gay may do all the things that she never had somebody really good do. And since they're not having sex anyway, she still have her boyfriend, have her gay man. So it's or vice versa. People have various scenarios. Because of that, and this goes into your questions about relationship, even in amongst the saints, it can be very complex. Love is not oftentimes a first requirement, and sometimes it's not a requirement. It may not necessarily even be something that's on the table. Wow. It may be friendship. It may be just financial. And there's some that want to be married for love and look to be married for love. Others that are there for companionship. Some know this. Like you can't even, my wife and I, we were laughing the other day, you can't even walk to someone and say, you know, such and such angel, you know, they cheating on you. They gonna sit around and talk. You know, they talking about we cheating, buddy. They swinging. It ain't cheating when you agree to it.
On nobody, okay?
Yeah, and I have to, you know, the spaces that I live in, unfortunately for me, I'm not gonna say unfortunately, fortunately for me, there are so many different scenarios in life that God has to be God over all of it. I'm not prepared to say that I care just because I'm a preacher. I don't care if your husband gay and your wife is a lesbian and y'all have arrangements. Now, I know online as a preacher, I'm supposed to say the blood of Jesus because that may be a part of what's culturally acceptable. But I don't care what you do. I don't care how you come. I care that you come, because people that come are a little bit happier, a little bit more pleasant. Do I personally care? No. Am I personally vested and involved? No. So I don't see you for what you do or how you do it. And as a matter of fact, when I see people, somebody say, well, I don't want to talk to you about this because I don't want to be judged. Like, I don't even want your boring business. The people that I know in their 80s and 90s had me blushing. Like, my mindset is not there. For me to make my mind be there, I'm throwing myself 30 years behind in a space I've already been into before. I'm not willing to do that.
Listen, Are y'all blessed tonight? I know I've been blessed tonight. We have gone 2 hours and 10 minutes. So that means we have to wrap
Oh my God.
up because Zoom is going to send me a message in a minute. But I
Okay.
thank God for you, my brother. As always,
Love
insightful, as always, transformative. Listen, y'all know what to do. Clap it up in the comment section. Send those hearts up. Make sure you re-listen because he gave a lot of information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transcribe the steps because that's how he flows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transcribe the steps so that we can put it up and make it easy for you to remember. Can we just love on him tonight? You see, I have pinned his Cash App to the top. You can find him.
Wow.
You can find him on Instagram. You can find you on Twitter or you banned from Twitter.
You know, I've mouthed it out a little bit. I'm a little, you find me on Facebook and you all send me a message. I'm not a mean guy.
Yes,
Send me a message. If you say Dr. O in the comments and put your name in there so I can add you as a friend.
Yes.
Especially if you Cash App. I'll add you if you Cash App me. I'll delete somebody and add you.
References when he accepts his friends, and I'm about to start doing the same thing because I'm tired. But you know what? I love each and every one of you for joining us tonight. You know what it is, the same time, same place tomorrow. If you have not ordered your book, make sure that you order your book. Those who have ordered, continue to be patient. Remember, I live in New York and COVID is acting a monkey up here. So that means that everything is running slightly behind. But I bless and thank God again for each and every one of you. Listen, I hope that you share this. I hope that you re-listen to it. I hope that you connect with the man of God. He is going to be coming this way as soon as the cooties go back where they came from, because I'm going to be bringing him up here. And a lot of you, you know, some of you know, some of you don't. We're gearing up for a conference. Hopefully I'll be able to announce it on my birthday. That was the hope and the plan. But with so many things uncertain, I just don't know how it will be for people to travel. So we're being mindful and we're being prayerful. Until tomorrow, remember that your next level is not in the pew. Your next level is down inside of you. Reach down and grab it, because over here, baby, we don't trend, we establish. We love you. We thank God for you, and have an amazing night and enjoy worship tomorrow.
Happy Mother's Day, Dr. Angel, and everybody listening.
Love you. Talk to you shortly.